Right, I'm just going to quickly show you the setup I normally use. It's nice and simple, just like myself. It's a nice little combi rig. First of all, on some soft braid. I normally use Supernatural, but I've run out of that, so any soft braid will do. I'm just using a bit of whiplash here, thin £30. Chop a bit of that off. Hook choice, obviously it's a personal thing, but I'm using the ESP curve shanks in the size 8 for this rig. Tie a knotless knot, but with a difference. I'm going to tie it as the KD setup. And to do that, all you do is you whip it round 3 times, then pull your hair out, and then continue whipping about 4 times. That'll do it. It's not critical. Now, when you're about to pass the end back through the eye, you want to be that side of the hair. If you're not, you'll see, because it sits over the hair and it's not sitting right. So as you can see, that's just very neat, and the hair's coming out as you want it to. Take a bit of fluorocarbon. Got the IQ in £15, or the IQ2, which is a bit softer than the normal one. Take a length for that and fold the end over, like so. Alright, now get your bit of braid and pass the end through your loop. Now, depending on how tight you pull that hook to the loop will depend on how long your soft, supple bit will be afterwards. So if you leave it at about ½ an inch, roughly, you should get about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So pinching the loop with your fingers, now take your braid and whip round the mono, both strands, keeping fairly tight. About sort of 7 or 8 turns. It looks a little bit fiddly, but obviously I'm trying to do it so you can see it with the camera. And once you've tied it a few times, it's easy. So then once you've gone up that way 8 times, I go a couple of times back round that, and then through the loop. Now as you're going back through this loop, you want it to come out the same side as your hook's coming out, like that. Now to pull that down, you want to be pulling all sides. So I've got both the bits of mono here and both the bits of braid there. Bit of moisture, and just sort of tease it down. You can pull that down with your fingernail. It's nice and tight. And then don't do this at home. You have a nice rig puller for that, ideally, because otherwise you might end up with a hook in your lip, as I've done in the past. It's not good, it's not fun. 3 hours in casualty. Right, trim that up. Both ends, and you're left with a really nice, neat combi rig. I really rate this. The fluorocarbon obviously has similar light refractions as water, so once it's in the water it's nigh on invisible, and I think that's quite an important thing these days, you know, especially when you're fishing in clear water. I'm just going to put a loop on the end of that. I normally fish with a clip so I can clip it on and off, so I just use a figure-of-8 loop in the end there. So I'm just doubling that up, making a loop, twisting that loop, and then going back through it with the tag. That's your figure-of-8 knot. Tighten that up, again, bit of moisture. You see, it's called figure-of-8 because it is the shape of a figure-of-8. Give that a tighten. Trim the tag off. So that's your rig. I'm going to tie the hair now. I've got a bad habit of tying the hairs afterwards because I always used to tie a lot of rigs in advance, and then depending on what bait I'd use, I'd tie the hair to suit. So this one, I'm using 2 bits of corn. I'm going to use 1 bit as the pop-up stuff and 1 bit as the sinking stuff, and that just gives you a perfect, quickly balanced bait. Just going to tie a little loop in the end of that. Just a normal overhand loop. I'm just going to trim that tag off of there. There we go, right, might as well stick the bait on there now. Now with this rubber stuff, you do need a sharp needle. If you've got one that's got a loop on the end, one of the rounded hook types, you're going to struggle. You can probably break it. So get yourself a nice sharp one. As I say, I'm going to use 1 bit of sinking corn and 1 bit of floating corn. So I want to thread the buoyant stuff onto the needle first, because that's coming off last, in the sinking one, like so. Pop that on there. I like these little ESP ones, nice and neat and tidy. Little hair stop. So that's it. As you can see, I've got a probably slightly larger gap than most people would use between the hair and the bait. I think A, with the KD rig, that helps, but B, because you're using a balanced bait, that bait's going to fly up into their mouth, and you want a little bit of extra length there with that hook dangling down. And you see that hook's just in the ideal position. When it goes in their mouth, it's going to take hold. Obviously it tightens up to the lead, they're nailed. So normally I'd fish that with a little bag. Well, I say normally, always. I'll thread that bag down the hook link. For this you need one of them gate closed needles. So it pulls through the PVA nicely. As you see, that just slips down there, and then you can pull your hook into the bag with 100% confidence that you can't get masked by anything. And then once that lands on the bottom, obviously the bag dissolves, your hook bait is right in amongst that bag mix.